Assume we're ready. Call the July 14th Middleburg City Council meeting to order at 6:02. Councilor Myers, would you please do the Pledge of Allegiance? Will. You. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Tammy, would you do roll call, please?
Yes, we have Mayor Bell.
Here.
Counselor Bowman is absent. Counselor Engelbretson.
Here.
Counselor Lehman.
Here.
Counselor Myers.
Here.
Counselor Smith. And Counselor Wells.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Very much. And because I have to remind myself, I'll remind everybody else to make sure your mic is on and close enough that your voice is.
I cannot hear.
I'm sorry,
I can't hear you.
you can't hear me.
I mean, I can barely hear you.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, my mic is now closer, so I'll try and remember that. Thank you for pointing that out, Counselor Lehman. Under Mayor's comments, I have a couple of things to say. Long-winded. But first of all, I want to acknowledge that one of our cities in Oregon, Mount St. Helens, lost their city administrator recently. He had been city administrator for 14 years in the city of St. Helens, and there was an accident, as I understand, and he drowned on June 15th. So our hearts and thoughts are with them as they navigate that loss. They must have an interim at this point that has stepped forward, but that's a tough loss.
Very
tough. I also want to say thank you to each of you for, number one, for serving on council, and number two, for getting me the requested documents so that we can do our city administrators evaluation here in a couple of weeks, so I appreciate that. I also want to remind people that there is a lot of events going on in Coburg. Tomorrow night is the second concert in the park, and I don't know if y'all had a chance to go last week, but it was hopping, and that's great. Lots of good booths around, and the music starts at 6, and it is a packed event, and that's really great to see. And I didn't see any parking issues, so hopefully that has righted itself. I also want to let you know that I personally experienced local policing in the last couple of weeks, and I want to say a personal thank you to Chief Larson. I was leaving City Hall, and there was an older gentleman, quite frail, that seemed kind of confused, and I asked him where he lived, and he was pretty vague about it. Well, about a mile that way. And I asked him how he got here, and he said, well, I walked. And then he started walking off in the other direction, and I thought, oh, this is not good. So one of our staff went and got Chief Larson, and Chief Larson came out, and because the gentleman wasn't going to listen to me to come into City Hall, that was not working for him. But Chief Larson went out with the police car, and I believe you took him home. Yes, so that is a true representation of local policing. And I'm just, as we talk about funding and how do we do this, this is why it's important. And I just wanted to really point that out. I also wanted to tell you, in case you're wondering, I am going to run again, so my name will be on the ballot, I believe, in November. I have filled out the paperwork and I have gotten the required signatures. So for those of you that will be joining me on the ballot, don't forget to do that. I don't know.
So look this way.
Look this way. Well, I hope that we all continue on if you can, because I think it's a great group. Great council, and I don't expect that we will all agree on everything. I think it's healthy to have disagreements, but I do respect each and every one of you. There also was an event that occurred, or an incident that occurred at the downtown office of our league, Lane Council of Governments, which we work very closely with. They had a member of the public, for want of better word, come in and start filming and going into places that were not available to the public. So I'm concerned always about security, and we're lucky that we have our police here, but they aren't always here because they have other things to do. So Adam and I are sort of investigating that and trying to figure out. There has been education that OCOG prepared, and that we're going to sort of make sure that everybody knows what do you do if that should happen, because I don't want anybody blindsided. So that will be happening. If you should hear anything about that, nothing untoward happened, except that there was filming going on in sort of private areas. We have a lot of clients that, and as we do here, and it is our responsibility to protect that information. So those are the things. You'll also find in your red folder some educational an educational event that LOC, League of Oregon Cities, I can sometimes get those messed up, is providing. And so I want you all, I think it'll be the annual conference that is going to be occurring. And if you're able to go. It is a 2-day event. It's just in Salem. I plan on going. I went last year to their event in Portland. It was a wonderful, there are mayors, there are city staff, there's counselors. They put on some wonderful educational breakout sessions. It is an opportunity to network and learn. As you've all heard me say so many times, we are not alone in the struggles that we face. Most cities in Oregon are facing the same thing. And sometimes that's always helpful for me to remember. So I just want to encourage you, if you're able to participate in any of those events, please do let us know, and Sammy will take care of registration, and I plan on just commuting back and forth. Salem is not that far, so I'm going to do that. So that's all I have for the mayor's comments. So we're on to agenda review. Sammy, are there any additions?
Yeah, you guys have, well, my microphone's loud. You guys have a couple of staff reports. This administration report for agenda item number 11 is in there, as long as also your local option levy discussion memo for agenda item number 8 is in there. Resolution 2617, agenda item number 3 is not going to be presented tonight. That'll be back in September. And I believe that's it, Adam.
Yep, that's it.
And in the red folder, you'll see the LOC council or conference, and that is October 15th through 17th. So you'll have that in your hot little hands, so to speak. Thank you. Okay, on the consent agenda, I assume if there were any major changes or any deletions that any of you noticed, you have let Sammy know. I did notice one thing, and it's on page 6 of our packet, page 4 of 6 of the minutes from, what was that, June 9th. I sometimes miss dates. The motion was moved by Counselor Bowman and seconded by Counselor Wells. So that correction needs to be made. So if you're going to make a motion to accept the consent agenda, please make it so that it includes that amendment. And so it's just the June 9th meeting and then the June 23rd council work sessions. If there aren't any additions or changes, I will accept a motion at this point.
I move to accept the consent agenda with the one amendment that the mayor brought up a moment ago on page 4 of 6 of the June 9th minutes, where the motion at the bottom of that page should say Counselor Bowman moved, seconded by Counselor Wells.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Counselor Engebretson and a second by Counselor Wells. I get a show of hands for if you move to accept. Counselor Lehman,
Yes,
did you accept the consent agenda?
yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So we have 5, and are there any dissenters? Not, because there's no one else here. So the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Let's see, our next item will be, oh, contracts on for Stallings Lane Water. Project. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Hanks.
Yes, thank you. This agenda item is in your hat as the local contract review board. This is a bid acceptance and contract award for the Stallings Lane transmission line. So this is part 3 of this 3-phase Stallings water project to bring additional water supply and system redundancy to our water system. This contract, as noted, was put out on May 18th, closed on June 18th, really competitively bid. The summaries are in the packet. The recommended, the lowest responsible bidder is Wildish Construction, $517,348.50. Again, as I noted in the staff report, good clumping of bids that really shows kind of the wide variety there. Staff was really, and branch was very encouraged by both the volume of response, the quality of response, and of course it was came in really competitively compared to the original engineer's estimate. When we start putting these together, it's really hard. Economic conditions can change very quickly in public infrastructure. Sometimes we've seen to our detriment. This and Coleman, more roadway and kind of standard infrastructure stuff is more competitive out there. The specialized stuff that we had in the prior phase of this, the actual water treatment building and facility and pumps and controls, much more specialized, fewer bidders, not as great marketplace costs. So excited to bring this forward to council. And again, the role contract reboard primarily is a process review. Did we conduct the bidding and the review and the award consistent with our ordinances and with state law? And then the final step of that is direct me to execute the contract and get this project going. The project, if council approves and accepts, I think we have a pre-construction tentatively scheduled pending tonight in about a week. The goal is substantial completion of end of October, formal completion in November. That then allows us to, that is the final project with the overall water loan that we've been drawing down over a period of 7 years now. So as I noted in the staff report, once this project is complete, we finish all of our disbursements and everything with Business Oregon. That will give us final numbers of our one-time accrued interest payment that we owe for the drawdowns we've done over the 7 years. That interest has to be trued up and paid. And then we'll have an exact amount what our debt service will be. The debt service is not in the current fiscal year that we just began. It'll be in the next fiscal year, December of next fiscal. So right before budget time is where I kind of expect to be able to present a recap of the entire, both the Stallings Lane 3-phase piece, but also the entire loan, what was done, what the costs were per the projects. Just a complete recap to close that loop and really then have a firm number leading into that FY28 budget about what our debt service payments will be on this newly completed project. So, but first things first, get this pipe in the ground and connect that well to our distribution system, which will take a bunch of work even after that transmissions line is done. So we'll have this done in November. Still not sure. Brian and I are still working with our team to figure out, what all needs to be done to actually get it flowing. There's a lot of balancing of the system, some adjustments to our valves and how the ratio of water that's coming in relative to how much we store and the timing. And there's just a lot of small things that come into play to actually get that water flowing, but it'll be exciting to get to that stage. So, with that, I can answer any questions you might have.
there any questions or comments for staff?
One quick question, I guess, just to clarify, I think it's probably an easy, simple question, or maybe a dumb question, I don't know. On the page 13 of our packet where you've got the numbers, a table with the numbers, for this project, is this the phase 3? I'm assuming that was budgeted for this fiscal year, is that right, Adam?
Yes.
And these figures that we're seeing are the budgeted figures for that, is that right? Oh.
Mhm. For phase 3, yeah, that was, and I noted there, that's why I highlighted that 900. That was the original engineer's estimate plus project management. So this bid is the construction bid. There still is project management that branch performs inspections, permitting. So that isn't the total cost of what we have in front of us from now through October, but it is the vast majority. And all of the engineering design has been done. So, but that was the original, when this was, I think I pulled this from, it was probably Marchish, when we weren't exactly sure, what that was gonna be. And it also was a bit dependent upon how Lane County was going to, what they were gonna require in terms of repaving, whether or not it just be a trench paving, because it's on the shoulder of a Lane County road, or whether it be half street improvement. A half roadway is a significantly more expensive, proposition. So, all of those were variables at that time when I put this table together. So I highlighted that. So that was the original estimate and the original budget. And the construction overall project cost, my guess will be, somewhere around 600, 610, something like that, which including all of that's not engineering design. That's from now to completion. So it's this project plus all of the, project management, everything that goes with that. It could be under 6, but somewhere around there, 575 to 6, in total.
So we say we're $300,000, give or take, under budget.
For that particular phase,
For that
yeah,
phase.
yep. And we were the other way, as you recall, on phase 2, we were the wrong way on that phase. So that'll be the fun, the interesting part of the recap, is looking at where things came in throughout the entirety of this entire project list that predates my time here, with this entire water infrastructure project list.
Yeah, it's interesting, pardon me, to note that it was started about 10 years ago. Is that this one that I read right? 2016? Or is that a different one?
Yeah, the water master plan was done then, and then the loans were secured right after that. So I think the loan number is 17. So I think that loan was secured there. It takes a while to get rolling, and then there was COVID and, all of that, all of the history and the ups and downs there. But yeah, it's a long-term project. And again, it'll be really interesting, I think, to see the recap. And, regardless of the trials and tribulations we've had with the cost and not getting as much done on the list as originally anticipated in 16, I still think what was done was a tremendous benefit to the water system. I think it's smart money spent. It's always nice to squeeze more projects out of that same amount of money, but it still puts the water system in really great shape. I hesitate to say it, but especially compared to a lot of other cities, a lot of cities are really struggling with theirs, and we don't want to overly compare ourselves to others, higher or lower. It's compare ourselves to ourselves, but it is really good. The redundancy, the additional supply, it puts us in really good shape in the water system. We still have another round to kind of do some master planning updates. And see what is really, and I think I mentioned that last meeting, is really, long-term additional supply or additional storage. Which one needs to be done, in what order? It's usually a both thing, but it's a timing issue. And then how do we fund that and stack debt or not? So plenty to be done, but it's more in the planning and development, strategizing stage after this completes.
I will point out that in 2016, when I was on council at that time and we were considering all of the things that we were going to do with this huge amount of money we were going to get, we had very ambitious plans. This was going to build us an elevated water storage tower. This was going to just fix the whole system. We were so excited. But it didn't work out that way. And partially because supply chain issues and rapidly escalating costs. I mean, it wasn't mismanagement on anyone's part, and perhaps we didn't factor in all of the engineering and project management costs. We're doing a better job now in looking forward at that, but it was an exciting time, also a scary time.
Yeah, I think Coburg's not alone in that same thing. It's very, it's hard not to get aggressive in your hopes and expectations when you're putting money on that current dollar. It is actually hard to spend money. It takes a while. It takes a while to spend the money. So you have to factor in time and obviously this one coincided with some variables that were somewhat unprecedented. So that's it's hard to plan for. Yep.
Unseen issues. Any further questions? Council deliberation, anything we want to talk about among ourselves? If not, I will entertain a motion. It's a long motion.
I move to accept the bid and award the City of Coburg Stallings Lane Well House project to Wildish Construction Company in the amount of $517,348.50 as the responsible and responsive low bidder, as reviewed and determined by the City of Coburg contract city engineer, and authorize the city administrator to execute the project contract as presented.
We have a motion by Counselor Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Counselor Myers to accept the bid and award the City of Coburg Stallings Lane Well House project to Wildish Construction Company in the amount of $517,348.50 as the responsible and responsive low bidder as reviewed and determined by the City of Coburg contract city engineer, and authorize the city administrator to execute the project contract as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Council action items, the building program operating plan update. That's going to be a staff report by Mr. Hanks.
Yes, I'll be brief with this one. This one we discussed a little bit last month, and it's the tag along piece to the IGA with Cottage Grove that I failed to get into the package. So you didn't have the document to review, but it really is a bit of a subservient piece to that IGA. We contract with Cottage Grove, as you recall from that discussion. They are our building department. They have their building official. We're required by state law to have a building official. Likewise, we're required to every 4 years submit an updated building department operating plan to the state of Oregon, to the Building Codes Division. So this document is updated. It's really compliance with, as you see throughout the document, compliance with it's OARs, Oregon Administrative Rules, more so than ORS. There's some ORS references, but a lot of administrative rules to say that if you are running a department, even though we contract out, large portions of it, we have to have an operating plan that shows that we meet all of those OARs. So it's really a compliance document. And I worked with Cottage Grove, Megan Winter and I worked with Melanie, the building official in Cottage Grove, to also standardize these as much as possible, the language between the 4 partners of that regional building program, which is Veneta, and and Crestwell and us. So that was a good exercise, and we're trying to do that again. You'll see coming up in a few months with the building codes themselves and our ordinance adoption of some of the state codes and the local trailing codes to go with that, trying to have consistency amongst the jurisdictions. So Cottage Grove building official Melanie can be very efficient in how she does business. The same, generally the same codes apply across all of them, which is different than land use zoning codes. That is the state building codes. So that's a quick rundown on this one. It's not super exciting reading, but something that we will send along to the state unless you see anything that needs addressed or questions.
Any questions for staff before the deliberations and motions?
Just on the same subject, I have a couple questions. I don't know if this is the right
go ahead.
place for them.
Go ahead,
Just
Counselor Smith.
If I missed it, it would be good in future to know how much we pay Cottage Grove, and I'm sure that that's been stated in the, what our cost is, and then the change in going from a flat rate to the new fee structure.
Yeah, that was all in last month's packet, and it is so the move was from a fixed cost to that variable cost. So it's a 75-25. So we bring in any of the permit fees that come in, permits, plan reviews, all of that. 75% of that goes to Cottage Grove for the operation of the program. 25% is retained for our portion. Megan manages our local component of that and facilitates the e-permitting and submits the surcharges to the state. We have quarterly, I think it's monthly now, it used to be quarterly, monthly surcharge reporting that goes to the state as part of what we collect on their behalf. And then, both she and I, work with Melanie, the building official. So that 25% stays. Prior to July 1, that's the new, prior to July 1, it was done on kind of a prior year volume estimate, and taking the total of the program costs that Cottage Grove has and then dividing that up in a percentage basis to the 4 jurisdictions, the Cottage Grove themselves, Veneta, Crestwell, and us. And we were the smallest of the 4 in that past 4-year agreement, but it was still a fixed cost. No matter what we had going on for activity, we had that expense. I think in the first 2 years that probably did us well. The second 2 years it probably didn't do us as well. I think I didn't run any really tight analysis to see where that 4-year where we came on it. It was just the cost of what the cost. That was the model we agreed to. All cities are in the group are moving to the same model. I don't think Veneta has finished their discussions with Cottage Grove yet about that. They're out of the 4, they're the ones growing the most. Crestwell, of course, has a moratorium as well. So their growth is that's growth is new units, new development, but there's still a lot of activity on the small stuff. Branch circuits for a hot tub, a solar installation, a lot of building permit activity doesn't really show itself in new subdivisions. That's where the dollars and the volume comes, but there's still a fair amount of activity. And we do provide that each month, in the city administration report, under the planning section. It shows how many permits are issued each month. So that's generally the change in the structure, and that does help our general fund situation out a little bit. And it just keeps it clean. It's just more dialing the program for if the volume of development goes up, the service level goes up. We still retain the same ratio, and we pay the same ratio. We don't get kind of stuck paying a fixed amount if activity slows.
As you said, as long as when we were actively in that building phase with our buildable land, it made sense to do it that way. As we've sort of exhausted those supplies at this point, we'll have to watch that and see what happens. But this was a substantial, since I recall, from when we were doing it on a percentage basis.
Yeah.
is it a decrease in what we paid?
Yes.
But how did it affect our permit fees for,
It,
did it change that?
No.
No.
No, the permit fees are the same. We do have an agenda item, you know, in September, October for discussion of building permit fee updates. We haven't updated our building fees in about 5 years.
Probably time to look at that, but as we all know, things have changed dramatically in 5 years. Fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you look at it. Any other questions or deliberation before we move on to a motion? Hearing none, I will go ahead and entertain a motion and a second.
Maribel, I move to acknowledge and accept the updated building department program operating plan update to be submitted to the State of Oregon Building Codes Division as presented.
Second that.
We have, there is a motion by Counselor Meyer and a second by Counselor Wells to acknowledge and accept the upgraded building department program operating plan to be submitted to the State of Oregon Building Codes Division as presented. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Or unanimously in this case. Okay, thank you. Moving right along, our next agenda item is.
Mayor,
Yes.
would you mind if we maybe go in reverse a little bit? Sammy pointed out something that I caught at the very end, that I messed up on the bid award agenda item. The motion, as you could tell, I grabbed the prior staff report. This is on the Stallings Lane. Yeah, it's probably fine, but it wouldn't be bad for cleanliness to have you all correct my mess up and state it better. The motion that I have in there that was read and it moved to accept bid and award for the Stallings Lane Well House project. That was really, it sort of still is the Well House project writ large, but it's really, that was more of how we labeled phase 2. It is really the transmission line portion. So I think Sammy is right for cleanliness and accuracy. If we could maybe revisit that motion or somehow acknowledge, I don't know, Sammy, what your preferred procedural is to recognize that is or just clarify that this was intended as a Stallings Lane transmission line bid award.
This thing is just to redo the motion.
Is that appropriate for you, Sammy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, if we just replace well house project with transmission line project.
Correct.
That should be.
Yep. Yeah, that was the only thing I did not catch in when I was developing the staff report.
Initial motion, I believe, would you like to do it again?
And it's a long one, sorry, I had you correct a long motion, yeah.
I move to accept the bid and award the City of Coburg Stallings Lane Transmission Line Project to Wildish Construction Company in the amount of $517,348.50 as the responsible and responsive low bidder as reviewed and determined by the City of Coburg contract and city engineer, and authorize the city administrator to execute the project contract as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Did I do it initially? Sorry.
I neglected to write it down, so. Thank you, Counselor Engelbrecht. So there is a motion by Counselor Smith and seconded by Counselor Engelbrecht to accept the bid and award the City of Coburg Stallings Lane Transmission Line Project to Wildish Construction Company in the amount of $517,348.50 $517,348,000. I can't say it right, and 50 cents as the responsible and responsive low bidder as reviewed and determined by the City of Coburg contract city engineer, and authorize the city administrator to execute the project contract as presented. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you for redoing that. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy, for bringing that to our attention.
Brian.
Oh.
Team effort. Yeah.
All part of the same team,
Yes,
and that's
we are.
what makes it work. So, thank you very much. Okay, next is the agenda item for the League of Oregon Cities legislative priorities. And Mr. Hanks, are you presenting?
Yes. This, I have a staff report on page 66 of the packet. As you recall, this is kind of the every other year thing that in advance of the big session, legislative session, League of Oregon Cities puts out a voting to all member cities, asking them to select each city's preferred top 5 topics or issues for them to focus on in the upcoming legislative session. That doesn't mean they don't do work in other areas. They do tons, but it's really gives them kind of their focus and their guidance. What is the, most important issues, broadly to the membership of the League of Oregon Cities. So I put a summary of the category. They're almost the same categories as 2 years ago. They slightly did some naming changes. And then behind my the summary of the topics, there is a recommendation. There are the little arrows there, the 5 that I thought from our prior dialogue and just what's happening, what's most impactful to the city of Coburg. I selected those 5. Very much open, obviously, to what council wants to see, but that's a starter kit at least for you to look at and see if there's any that jump out at you and then would replace any of those. So behind the staff report is the voting guide that has a little blurb on each of the I think there are 20, what did I say, 27 items. And then the very end is a list. It didn't print very well because it was a clip and enlargement. I tried to put the actual voting thing they gave us into the packet as well to give you just a list of all of them without any of the category headers, just a straight list, if that's helpful at all. But it's due in September. Just the timing worked out to have it provided to us in time to get it on here to give time. So if there is any particular debate or desire for additional information before you make your votes, we can have this on the September agenda and still make the deadline. I do think it's important and valuable to submit the city's stuff. It's I don't know that you also need to wring your hands and worry too much about it. I think it's what are the big hot topics, and and my take is always from a city perspective. There's lots of issues at the legislation, but from a city perspective, infrastructure funding, is always critically important, and what is developed in terms of grants, loans, options, I think is an essential piece. And of course, the transportation package, while a lot of that is beyond the local component, and can be debated from all angles, really we're looking at it with a city municipal focus, and from a municipal focus, the League of Oregon Cities, is looking to protect cities' interests in that. There'll be tons of discussion on things that are beyond cities. But really, we do get, we get a share of revenue into our street fund. pretty critically important. It's one of our three-legged stool, really, of our revenue streams in the street fund. We get state gas tax, the apportionment. We have our own local gas tax, and we have the TUF. And they're in close to identical amounts. They're pretty close. So reducing, that's always been on the table, is taking that share and having more of it go to ODOT, less of it go to cities. The 50, 30, 20, you'll hear that a lot about what chunks are go to what agencies, into what buckets. That's an essential part of that. So I think that one, clearly, water and the infrastructure funding is water and wastewater primarily. Transportation package is our streets funding. Ratepayer assistance, that one is, it kind of comes and goes. I think it's been very effective. We have used it here. I've been involved in those programs in other communities as well. It really augments and sometimes can remove the need for local, policies for low income rate assistance. Different eligibility, different pots of money, different agencies that administer it, but we then can facilitate our customers to those programs. So that was why that was selected. The community energy resiliency and disaster planning, you heard us talking about power and brownouts and intermittent stuff. That one might not be 100% directly related to us. It's at least directly related to our power supply and our ability to maintain the water and wastewater systems. It also, obviously disaster planning and just relates to the general ability for the community to be prepared as possible for things that are well beyond Coburg's abilities to resolve. Some of those are grants, some of those are loans, there's a variety of things inside of that topic. These are very general statements at this stage in the game. The whole process of legislation goes through lots of iterations of what's in it to start and what makes it out at the end can be wildly different. But that was, I think, an important one from our again, relating to city infrastructure and then also to kind of community protection and resiliency from an energy perspective. And then public meetings law clarity. That one is one that's really hot topic with the whole ethics commission. And, I think it has some, it's a big issue. It's a sticky issue. I think from a functional level, it can be the difference in people deciding whether or not to run for city council or, even appointed positions. It's been hotly debated about how far down into the system, into the weeds, the ethics requirements go, and also, how public meetings law, violations a little bit, but just how they are administered. And I think LOC has a very high interest and has been very engaged in the topic. And it may not be one that's really hot for us here locally. I think it is a hot for local government issue generally, while it doesn't really touch us day to day, but it could at any moment. They're toughies, and sometimes the enforcement and the penalties are severe for something that is an honest mistake. So there's a lot more to it than that, but that one just maybe more riding the wave of other cities and their problems that they run into there, even though we haven't really. So those kind of a little snapshot of why those five were selected. And I thought, many others as you look through them are really specific. They're clearly been, an experience that this jurisdiction has encountered. Some are not quite as broad as others, but and there's some that are literally specific to cities, urban growth boundary stuff, and like Eugene's.
Get this information back to you.
Well, last time, it was just a review of this and in the meeting, we didn't do a two-part thing. It was just, is that generally, if you got, I don't know how much studying you were able to do on the packet, we got it out, Friday, but, if we can take it any way you want. We can give it another, you can marinate on it if you want, but again, um, it's a package, 200 and hopefully 241 other, 240 other cities are gonna submit as well. They look at the point scoring and they take the top 5. I would imagine that 3 of these are locks, regardless of what we say: infrastructure planning, transportation package, and public meetings law. And, the other 2 are maybe the ones that are maybe in more competition to make the statewide top 5. So it's just a matter of how much you want to invest in studying and looking at it. And again, these are super general at this point because there's not specific legislation tied to any of these yet. These are issues.
It gives LOC and their lobbyists things to focus on and fight for. If enough, not fight, that's probably a poor choice of words, but if enough cities think that a particular item is important, they will reach out and keep hammering at that. And on the weekly updates during legislative session, they are very clear about what they're doing and what the pushback is. So what's your feeling tonight, council? Do you want to just choose tonight? Do you want to mull this over and get back to Mr. Hanks within the next week?
Yeah, it would really need to be it does need to be a council motion decision. So it wouldn't be an individual like us tally the individual votes. It's a vote of council.
We have to
Yeah.
come back at our.
Right. It would come back in September meeting, if you want to, kick it around anymore.
Well, I mean, my feelings are just go with the recommendations that staff has made. I mean, there's a lot of, in those 27 bullet points, there's a lot of things that would seem to have more direct impact on Coburg, but overall, I think those are good choices. You wonder though, I mean, here we are, a city of 900 or maybe 1,000 people, how ours is going to, I mean, do they give weight to the bigger population centers like suburbs of Portland? Or?
I don't know, but if you look at the number of small cities, there are more small cities than there are big cities.
Really? And they're given an equal vote?
Well,
In this process, yes. Yeah. You're a member and a member gets a vote. So, and as you say, there's 241, I think, incorporated cities, 167 or 170 or under 5,000. So, it's obviously the league also, just to back up on that point, they have, I think, 5 or 6 lobbyists, and they all have their portfolio, they call them, of the different categories they focus on. All of the reporting comes in these categories. They're broken in, because they report on all of these. This is just setting up what are the main focus areas, right? The membership is the larger cities have their own lobbyists, right? So they aren't as worried about this process because they directly lobby. They participate directly. So the league, represents all cities, but it actually is much more smaller city focused because it's really, it's a way for all of the smaller cities to actually, we're a member so we can have a lobbyist instead of a paid or a consultant lobbyist or something that's a direct contractual relationship. The big cities all have that.
Yeah, League of Oregon Cities is very active. They do a lot of work.
Yep.
I only see one that stands out to me just because we're already kind of dealing with some issues, and that's the adoption of autonomous vehicles. Is that talking about the scooters, and is that what that is? Or is that something else?
No, that's Waymo, that's cars. Yeah. Yeah, self-driving cars, yep. Yeah, I think it's a big deal. Yeah. And I would imagine that, Portland and, maybe if maybe Eugene, but, that's definitely, they're feeling the pressures of those companies moving on in without maybe the best legislative framework. But, yeah.
Counselor Lehman, you've been pretty quiet. Any thoughts on this?
No,
I think there's quite a few things on the list that look, like they would be good things to advocate for, but I think the items that the staff has selected seem logical to me. So to me, I don't feel like it's something we have to belabor too much. I think it's reasonable what staff has proposed.
I agree. Well, with that, I will, call for a motion. There are no further questions I should ask.
Move to accept the staff recommendation for the city of Coburg's top legislative priorities to submit to the League of Oregon Cities to support the LOC efforts on behalf of its member jurisdictions in the upcoming 2-year Oregon legislative cycle.
We have a motion by Counselor Wells and a second by Counselor Smith to accept the staff recommendations for the city of Coburg's top legislative priorities to submit to the League of Oregon Cities to support the LOC efforts on behalf of its member jurisdictions in the upcoming 2-year Oregon legislative session. All those in favor, say aye.
aye,
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Next we have. No. Let's see, oh yes, it is the administrative information support.
Well, we've got,
Reports.
let's see, where are we? Oh, yes, yeah, we're in that general category, correct. Yes, we are. All right.
I had to back up and take another look.
Okay. Yeah, first up on that list of administrative items is the ever so exciting TMDL, the total. Yes, total maximum daily load, TMDL. It's probably better just the initials. When you explain it, it doesn't even help when you say the words out. But Brian's going to join me up here, and this is an annual item that we submit to the state. As you recall, I think it was last year. Every 5 years we have to update a full plan, and was it last year that we did the plan? Updated the matrix. This is just an activity report stating what how we're doing in meeting those objectives. So we've provided Brian has provided a recap by category, and then a specific reduction plan for the wastewater treatment plant that was developed due to some temperature, that is excess thermal load means high temp water, and then
Now it's two.
Yep. And then behind that is the actual matrix itself, with the column that has the status updates. So that's the package. Brian, I don't know if you want to go through kind of everything. Or if you just have specific questions, we can do whatever you prefer. And Brian can talk about this for a long time.
Yeah.
It is extremely important.
It is.
To us
Yes.
on council and to every citizen of this community. So, council, do you have specific questions, or do you want Mr. Harmon to just go through it quickly? You want to hit the high point? Would you like him to hit the high points and tell us what?
Sure. I can hit some highlights.
That would be good.
Like the Mercury one, right there in the beginning. One of the things that is unique about Coburg is we do not have a lot of outfalls to waters of the state. So, almost all of our, stormwater is managed through infiltration. So ours is kind of unique compared to other jurisdictions. But, so, the 90 hours of, bioswale maintenance. So that's a culmination of, when the crews go out to do mowing, plantings and things, of those tasks. One of the big ones I wanted to hit was the bacteria, and 38,400 dog bags are provided annually. Right.
Amazing.
I I can't stress this enough. Every one of those gets used. So if you think about what that does, um, for the neighborhoods, I think that's huge, right? That's a big thing. Um, that's a big number. And, we could probably add 3 or 4 more stations, and I think people would be really happy. And then and those bags would get used. So, them are just the bags that we provide. Now, a lot of people provide their own bags. So, that's a big number. Um, Adam had mentioned the permit violation back in August. The cooling water well went out, and we were just right on the very end of. We worked really quickly to figure out a solution, but we just ran out of time. So this plan that is included in this staff report should eliminate that downtime. And I really feel good about moving forward if we do have a problem. The temperature issue is probably our number one um, problem we have at the plant.
That's a rolling 7 day.
It's a rolling 7 day average. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
rolling average, so once math is
Yep.
sometimes not in our
Yep.
favor.
Yep. And if there's not enough water going into the creek for our effluent to match, that causes us problems. So we were able to partner with Muddy Creek Irrigation Project and come up with a solution for this summer and summers moving forward. I really feel comfortable about how we're moving forward.
And that's a real quick shout out to Muddy Creek.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Brian attends all the board meetings, really good partnership.
Yep.
And they made some adjustments, to benefit us, that they didn't really have to do.
That's exactly right.
Worked out really well. So, a real big shout out to that partnership.
Yep. One of the big ones is the all pollutants. And that's the planting of the trees for Arbor Day. That's a big part of our matrix. The outreach and education on the website. That's we have spots on the website to talk about what we're doing. The vegetation management plan is in final stages of being developed, and we're really working towards getting that plan. So the contracts and how we manage the bioswale areas. I'm really excited about that. It's just the wheels do turn slow, and we all wish they would move a little bit faster, but if you move them too fast, mistakes get made.
In our recent stormwater master plan, that we presented, just a few months back, that really ties to this as well. So this is its own thing, but it's embedded. The stormwater master plan is listed here, and those really dovetail.
Yep.
So the goal is all of these things that we sometimes bring to you that seem like individual things, they really do all kind of mesh together from a regulatory and an operational standpoint, both. And much more regulatory than sometimes we'd like, but it also means that's what we have to manage and match up to and meet or exceed. And this verifies that we do that.
Yep. The stormwater master plan, I'm glad you brought that up. That has been on the matrix since prior to me taking over in 2016. And we were always saying, next year, we'll get it next year. And finally we got it done. So that was a big lift, and I'm really excited about having that done.
So if I may ask a question, the trees that were planted for Arbor Day,
Mhm.
do we are we keeping them watered?
Yes.
This horrible dry 3 months that we always experience.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think they're looking good. I think we're paying attention to the ones that we did on Van Dyne a lot more than they were planted differently. I really feel good that I think they're going to make it through this summer. And once we get through this summer, this initial, I think they're going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once those roots can
Yep.
get down to the groundwater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's a tough time of year to plant. Rain.
Yep.
Oh, but that is when Arbor Day is, so we recognize that. And I appreciate the complexity of the bioswale management also. I mean, they just look like, well, they're just ditches. What could you have to do to them? But there is a lot of maintenance, and that is appreciated. Any other questions, comments from council? Oh, I'm glad. Oh.
The council,
I'm sitting here thinking, I'll say it out loud. I just, we can't take our staff for granted. All of our staff, from our public works to our police to everyone else. You're doing critical work for us. So thank you all.
yes, you're welcome.
And Public Works and police and everybody on city staff is really working hard, and both Public Works and police have had cuts in FTEs, and that's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal when you lose experienced people or you just have a shrinking workforce, because the work doesn't stop. It goes on. And thank you.
Yep.
Thank
You
you
betcha.
to each of you, each and every one of you. Okay. No other questions? Guess you're off the hook.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good summer retreat.
Yes. Yes, it'll be great.
Well, that was a perfect queuing up or segue to the administration report, because right on the top there is a Public Works staffing update and what we are doing to address some of the changes, and also, as Brian said, some of our vegetation management plans, and enacting some of the things we've talked about that we were going to do in a different order, but circumstances kind of flip things around on us. So we're taking a different route to the same end goal. So I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll step through. We've lost Public Works staff, two in the past 3 months. So we have another who left, Grant. You probably all know, he's been around for a while. Again, this was a very bummer, but good bummer leaving. He's I went the other way around. I thought it was next. I did. I just took the segue and went to city administration, and that wasn't on the list. All right, thank you. Yeah, it's in a different spot than I thought it was. So we've had to scramble. So we've lost 2 and hired 2. We have one already on 3 weeks ago, and then another coming out of that same recruitment pool, because it happened relatively quick. We have another one starting up. Ivan will be starting next week, if all falls into place as it looks like it will. That puts Brian, I think I mentioned it last month, puts Brian in much more of a training mode. And makes it challenging to do the breadth of things at a moment's notice that a more long tenured staff is used to doing with less direction and less less follow up. So, and then we also have, I back up, Grant, I didn't finish that statement. Grant left to another Public Works department in a neighboring jurisdiction, which is actually, I think it's a kudos to Brian, that he has, worked his team and trained people up to be ready to take on other jurisdictions and other paths. So it was great leaving, it's a bummer to see him go, but it's the right kind of leaving. So that was great. And we've got two great people filling those slots. It just will take some time to train on a lot of the uniqueness. You know, Brian mentioned the uniqueness of our stormwater system. We also have a very unique wastewater system. It has a little bit, well, not a little bit, a lot more maintenance and operational. It's more technical than many wastewater facilities. So the training curve is quite steep, and they have to all quickly rotate into being on call. We have someone who's always on call evenings and weekends, and our systems generally have call outs. It's not an on call that is in name only, it's real. It's with Brian's guidance, from a phone usually. You know, there is weekend work in wastewater and water. So that's another training component. So alongside that, parallel to that, to that change, we talked about here at council the idea of contracting our landscape maintenance for our park system and our rights of ways. We were going to do that in early in the season and do a trial period. We did not have enough time to get the bids out and develop the bid sets. So we said, okay, we're going to do it with our staff plus temporary. We budgeted a temporary worker between streets and parks. That didn't go so well. That's been a challenge to get temporary staff. I think that we've exhausted that as a viable option. And so what we ended up doing was contracting this out for the second half of the year, the second half of the growing season, both rights of ways to a contractor, and then also the parks maintenance to another contractor. So Rexius, you may have seen them out there. They've already started. They'll be doing the parks regular maintenance on not facilities, not restrooms, not trash cans, just mowing, trimming, weeds. So we have a specific contract with them, and it's really a pilot for both of these to see, you know, are we defining things well? Are we have the right cadence? Is it too frequent? Is it not frequent enough? How does it work with events and scheduling? And we're so used to being really custom in what we do and how we do it because it's our own team. So there's a lot to work into to a contract and agreement about kind of scope of work. The right of ways, similarly, it's a much smaller contract because the right of ways are not irrigated. They don't grow the same way. So they're on a much slower cadence for the rest of this year. The cadence is weekly in the beginning of the growing season for sure. But at this time of year, that slows down considerably. So we assigned, or we scoped out kind of the right of ways that are the really most standard mowing areas. Some of the custom rights of ways, which swales would be included in that, we did not include in that contract. That's a little bit different. We may want to look at that later when we have a little more ability to discern the scope of work. And if we bid something on a multi-year basis, we'll see what we want to retain in-house and what makes sense to contract. The overarching goal really is to have the same quality of service that we've been providing in-house by third party, which then opens up Brian's team to focus on the things that we can't get out there in a third party in the marketplace. We have to train and grow our wastewater operators ourselves. We need to grow our water facility, water infrastructure management team, and operator teams. Those things aren't available in the marketplace. Landscaping, vegetation management is. And when you look at the staff, cost and also just the bouncing a bit of public works ADD that is required, where you're on a mower and then all of a sudden you've got to stop mowing and go fix a water leak, and then the mowing gets behind by 3 days and gets behind. It's not really efficient to operate everything under our own roof. And so we're looking at this as a trial period to really test out with these contractors. They are very clear that it's going to be rebid in January, February. So they aren't, they don't have anything extra for this period, other than being real helpful to us in understanding, are we communicating our needs and wants appropriately in the scope of work. So a lot of changes in a very short period of time for our public works operations, and it was really driven by a need to pivot because of staff turnover. But I think Brian's been amazing at being able to be nimble and move pieces around, and we had a great recruitment. We were really fortunate to have a really good recruitment. The top two, we were able to still snag Ivan. They were great candidates. So we feel really confident with what we've got going on. It is a little bit different, but I think we'll see dividends. It's an ability to focus, both on the water and wastewater infrastructure side with Brian's team. We can focus there. And the vegetation is able to focus with professionals that do that and do that efficiently, have all the equipment. We have some aged equipment. We were at the spot of needing to invest in equipment. I think we're at a spot where we don't have to invest in that equipment quite so much, because we won't be using it near as much. We'll still have some need for some of it, but so I think that's really the recap of where we are in Public Works, and tried to embed it there for you. It's like I said, it's been a lot, but I think it's what we've talked about at council about testing and trying. It just all came tumbling on us at once, so we jumped and did it. Yeah, we were going to kind of do it in the reverse order, but we're doing this as a pilot. I think it's going to work out really well to learn from this season.
Message to council: if and when you get feedback from community members, wow, we're in this tight budget time, and now we see these professional people out here, and we're throwing money away. Well, no, it was a fiscally responsible way of dealing with continued staff shortages, and allowing our public works staff to do only the things that our public work staff can do, to be trained and to become experts in that. We can't hire, we have been unsuccessful in hiring somebody to manage the wastewater plant or manage, and I don't know that the citizens of Coburg or any of us would be happy with having that done. I think water and wastewater are critical, and we don't want to give up on that.
Yeah, and that the real focus, again, on those two items is the regulatory, right? As you see from the TMDL and from other things, we have to have tight internal controls on the items that we're regulatory responsible for. Parks and right-of-way vegetation maintenance is probably one of our lowest thresholds from a regulatory standpoint. It's also what sometimes, that's why it gets lost in the shuffle sometimes and gets waits and doesn't get done. And really that focus that Mayor's describing is to ensure that we continue to have a staff that can meet and exceed our regulatory requirements, because they are stringent and it's constant. Mess ups can cause a lot of problems, both from fines and actual real health problems. So yeah, that's the focus.
Smith.
I was just curious, I did see Rexius, they looked like they did a great job. They're fast, but how much was the 3-month contract with them? What is?
So the administration report on page 2 has the contracts. Yeah, so the Rexius is a 6-month and it's 24,000, and the streets right away is just under 5,000. And the parks is really equivalent to there's a combination that it stays within our parks budget. So none of this is exceeding any of our budgetary limits. It's just performing it differently.
Just from what you said, it's obvious that our public works staff has much more definitive, important things to do in parks, and it's neat to see that we were able to contract this out. I think going forward as we get more figures and look at our park fee and that, maybe in the future, possibly talk about not worrying about going to a temp employee, but actually hiring a parks person that will just do parks. Whether that would be feasible or not, I don't know, but I think it's obvious Public Works is not.
It may be more expensive to do it that way than to contract it out.
But it's nice to have we'll have comparison, so we'll be able to see.
Yeah, I mean, we can do cost comparisons of FTE. You know, one of the challenges straight up, you know, the elephant in the room thing is, you know, public employees are expensive. You know, PERS, healthcare, all of that. So when you are comparing, there's a desire sometimes to have that on. There's benefits sometimes with having that expertise and that task be assigned to an on-staff person. That isn't always the case. And you need to measure that, you know, with the true cost of an FTE to see, you know, yeah, and the equipment and really the availability. You know, with a contract, we don't have to worry about somebody being out on family medical leave, being sick, quitting, you know, or resigning, you know, leaving gaps. So there's a different ledger, you know, that you have to look at when it's not just the money. But it's a lot the money, and the money typically is going to come out in our favor of third party. And you know, we really then can dial up and down the cadence, you know, what are the service level expectations that we want. So that is the rest of this year will inform how we go about bidding that out. And it fits with our vegetation management plan as well that Brian mentioned. All of that dovetails together because those should go together. And it's clearly a heavier load, you know, in you know, May, June, and then it tapers. So how do we do the different types of contracting that either we levelize that or we pay peak and then pay a residual. The typical is levelized cost. And it's pretty common. You know, this is how this stuff it really economically has to be done. You know, it would be hard pressed to bring that on staff. Because on staff is usually kind of managing systems. You know, the labor component is more often than not, unless it's very, very specialized, like we're talking about with water and wastewater, is best suited, you know, really to a third party, to people that have all that covered.
I think it'll be an interesting pilot project, and I think we'll learn a lot and move forward. So I think now we have the police department quarterly report.
We can go with that.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So
Larry's here. We know.
do you want to hit any high points on this? And council may have questions.
There was a police highlight in the that relates to this report as well in the city administration report under the technology section. So there's just something to look at later. Yep.
Mostly, isn't it?
Yep. So that goes with some of the new vehicles and the tools that we're putting out.
Technology updates.
Police department's busy, as you can see, and it's gonna get busier with summer coming, so that's good and bad. We've been working on updating the vehicle fleet, so we have all the vehicles striped. We have the fire department's gonna install the radios. I bought 2 radios today. So we'll have our radio with the sheriff's department and one with Oregon State Police. That was a totally outdated radio. I bought 2 today. JJ helped me find them on eBay, so they're only a couple $100 a piece. So those vehicles should be rolling out on patrol in the next week or 2 at the most. Also our new firearms, which is for people that know guns, it's a Glock 47, which is a 9mm. We've made a change from the 45 caliber, which is a big caliber, went to the Glock, so we hold more rounds. As if you look at shootouts across the nation, there's a lot more rounds being spent. And then we have a red dot sighting system So it's a lot more accurate. I think 30% or 35% better accuracy just going to that, which means safety for the police officers and less liability to the city. So I think that's a big change, a good change. So we did firearms training. We also did qualifications. We've had to order a couple magazines. Those should be coming out in the next week or two. We'll be carrying the new firearms. So all improvements to the police department, working with the sheriff's department, IT, we should have our laptops coming in the next week or two. It's going to be very productive last couple of weeks. We've done all the work, but I think the fruit's going to happen. Also, we're having an update to our evidence software system that is totally outdated. It won't even take updates anymore. So we had that should come online in the next week or two. I think we're just waiting on
Requires some server
Yeah.
changes. It's now gonna be client server based rather than just being on an
with LCOG.
old laptop. So with no backups and no, yeah, we're significant alterations there. Small but
We're
critical.
moving up into
We
the
are.
correct century.
Yep.
Correct, which is money, which is why we haven't in the past.
I have a
Also,
question.
Yes, Counselor.
What do we
Lehman?
do with the old firearms?
We're gonna sell them to the officers for what the market rate is at a firearm store. So they'll have an option of buying their firearm that's already assigned to them. If not, they'll just be in inventory or sell them to a gun dealer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. So over the 4th of July, we opened up a dispatch call to track all fireworks calls. There's ever some chat about fireworks being a problem. We had absolutely 0 calls.
Oh.
0,
That's interesting.
not one single call. So that shocked me, but we had 0 calls. And then earlier we had talked about the auditors coming into the city. We have had, Sergeant Miller was on duty.
It's the video, not financial auditors, you're
The,
talking about.
yeah, coming through City Hall and trying to see everything you're doing.
Video.
Yeah.
Sorry, that type of an auditor. So we had a Second Amendment auditor come to the police department. The officer saw him peeking in the police car windows, peeking in the City Hall windows. He was carrying a firearm. Sergeant Miller approached him, talked to him, had a great conversation. He was looking for overreaction or something to fight about. He actually complimented Dan that he had never been treated so professional, and he didn't have any questions for the police department. So don't ever think that we're small and it won't happen here, because it will. So I'm glad that we're looking at the security measures for the City Hall staff, signage, all of those things I think are very valuable.
So the auditor, that isn't like a state auditor.
No,
that's
it's
just
a
like
citizen that
community
wanted to
members.
push the boundaries on Second Amendment rights.
Like a secret shopper type.
Yeah,
of thing.
apparently,
Kinda-
with a
Not something
firearm.
you usually expect a couple times a year, they just sort of pop up and test you.
They do, yeah. This is the first time I think we've had one in Cobra, but that was last summer.
A private citizen, not.
Private citizen.
Oh, yeah, no, this is they're constitutionalists or auditor,
Yeah,
it's,
sorry. That
professional
terminology.
agitator.
It can be called by many
Yeah.
names, but, okay.
And it does relate to the mayor's comments at the top on
It
Elkhart.
does.
That's exactly what occurred there. And if you go to TikTok or whatever, you can see, it's nationwide. And the one that happened at Elkhart, there was national chatter, including threats, including, there's a niche of that, significant niche throughout the country. And so it is absolutely a real thing, and it can
It
pop
is.
up anywhere, anytime. And not handled correctly, it can be problematic.
Which is what they're looking for.
Exactly, yeah.
His goal was to agitate and see if he could.
He was, well, he wanted to be challenged regarding the firearm he was carrying. And it's totally legal, so the officer never talked to him about it at all. And he was impressed with that.
There's a lot of training videos about what not to do, when those things come around.
But it's hard when you're
It is.
in this situation, you can go through all the training, and then when you're actually confronted in the situation, it's hard to remember.
When, if I was here and looking out the window at somebody peeking in with a gun, can't say I would have felt calm about it.
Well,
As a private citizen,
That's right. That's why.
my
we
reaction
have-
might not be professional, but I'm a private citizen, so. I don't know, bad. I'm not saying, I'm just, a negative reaction as in, why you waving a gun at me? You know?
So, yeah, you know,
Anyway.
part of those rules, just to clarify, you know, the security issues, there are some rules that you have to post as authorized. You have to have clear delineation between space. Otherwise, they can go.
It is
And
public.
that's what they're testing. They're testing, do you have your systems in order to where when you say, I'm sorry, you can't go beyond this, you have to have it written right. You have to have the signs up. You have to treat it properly because there are rules for that. And it's very easy to have some lax stuff that is well-meaning and have a comfortable, really, comfortable setting that has holes in it, literally, for these kinds of encounters, and they can be really messy really quick. So, the stuff from LCOG is really good information. I think they're taking it very seriously. We've had a full staff conversation about it. Larry and I are working on getting assessments done just to make sure we have a pretty good functional idea what we want to do or what we need to do. We'll probably be coming back to you about what that looks like and what it costs. And, those are just the realities of this day and age.
One comment.
Yes, Counselor Lehman.
There are also videos out there of similar activities when the police officer pulls over a motorist and what the motorist is saying they can legally ask for or illegally do or not do. So it's not just around the buildings.
Right. Yeah, it's everywhere and, we do have rights living in this country, but we also have responsibilities and that's sometimes a fine line.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly something to be aware of. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we did
Yeah.
very-
I messed you all up on which order it went in, so we're all scattered. Sammy's gonna hate it for minutes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. I just jumped on it. Yeah. I think the last item we have is the local options. And then we have local options levy discussion and then the monthly financials. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a memo in in the red folder that is, we have the resolution that has the agreement to put this on every council agenda so we can keep tabs, keep moving forward. The memo that I have, the majority of the front page is new, from the subtitle background on. That's just kind of a rolling continuation of prior memos. So the only new for this is the top, the staff recommendation and request, and then the current status and council direction. What I was wanting to have a discussion on, and it doesn't, where we last left off, I guess I'll start there, was scheduling some sort of a mini retreat. There was a discussion of October, then September, and a work session or a Saturday, and then some discussion about what is kind of the focus, or what tools, or what do we want, how to make that productive, to make it as productive as possible for a dedicated chunk of time for council to take. Kind of labeled it the mini retreat. So what I put, is there's two things. We began working on the 10-year forecast, the model. So that's well underway. I've got a really cool tool built. We've got it out 10 years. We've got budget assumptions. We have about 10 or 12 tabs at the bottom, so we can run different scenarios. We can say, okay, what if a police FTE comes in FY29? What does that look like? How does that affect the fund balance over the years? So I think that tool is well on its way to being a usable thing for setting some things up in advance, and then also for just doing some live scenario work with council in the retreat. And I described in the memo really what the tool has three functions. A general forecast, kind of a pre-built general forecast for business as usual, given assumptions that we can talk about and step through. Understanding the financial conditions that are necessary to maintain the existing services, existing staff, and the programming over the 10-year period. So that's kind of the baseline, what the forecasting tool will do. The second part of that is the fund balance, the relationship of those revenues and expenses to the ongoing fund balance of the general fund. We can't lose sight of what that does year over year to the fund balance. And then the third is really the scenario planning piece of plugging something in and saying, what if we did a local options levy for public safety in year X, and what would that do? How does that affect this? Where would the revenue that was otherwise dedicated to that function, where would it go? Or would it go away? And what would it look like if it, all of those kind of, just generally scenario planning. And then still being able to see what that does to fund balance over time. So those are kind of the three ways that tool will be used. And then the ask, or the direction, is really the issue of timing. So the tool is nearly done, and we can have that part of the conversation, no problem. But what I wanted to bring up was what we've talked a little bit about before, is the URA. The URA is, to me, such a critical component. When you're talking about scenario planning, that's the ultimate card in the scenario planning about its impact on the general fund. And as we've talked about, and we budgeted for a URA consultant, and in the back of this memo is the scope of work from that consultant. Haven't executed the contract yet, but plan to get that rolling in the next few days. Looking at that, needing the results of that analysis, really, I think, best suited to have that before we have the retreat. So we're really clear about what are the options for URA. When does it have to go away? When could it go away? All that is a primary component of scenario planning, because you really don't want to be in a position of kind of developing a local options levy strategy without knowing when that valuation bump, that large one-time change in the valuation total in the general fund is going to happen. You want to know when it has to happen. You also want to know when you want it to happen, because we could pay it early. We could, it's not a one answer thing. So my ask, or my suggestion, recommendation, is that we schedule that retreat as soon after that URA assessment is completed, as possible, but not necessarily do it before. If we want to do something before, we could do more of a dedicated work session that is just an overview of the forecasting spreadsheet tools, to kind of get that under our belt. And so then when we come back around with URA final analysis, you're already familiar with kind of the workings of that tool, and maybe have given me some guidance on pre-building a few more scenarios, so we have some built out scenarios that we could look at. So that's the gist of the memo and the ask. We haven't scheduled the meeting. I know we were running into scheduling challenges, which we always will on evenings and weekends. So if I don't know how you want to proceed with the discussion, but that's really the idea.
Entertain council discussion at this point.
I like that, because a big part of my evaluation will be based on that, going away, or when it will. So having that factual information and building that timeline, because we know from putting something like this on the ballot, it will still be a year after that. Like, we'll be able to map and model better. So for me, I think that's good information to have for us to look at.
Mr. Myers? Counselor Smith, what are your thoughts?
I agree. It seems like it'd be a waste of time to guess, so we can have more information about that, our decision.
So the other question that Mr. Hanks asked is, do you want to have a session where we just go over the the build out of the 10-year forecast and then come back to the URA discussion.
Yeah.
Am I correct? on
Yeah,
that?
and my guess with that one, I was thinking of it being not the full dedicated retreat time. That would be maybe just the September work session. You know, it just use a regular work session for that. I think it's an overview and getting feedback from you all and saying, did we hit the mark? Is there, hey, could you build a spreadsheet so we can also do this? You know, then when we come back with URA stuff, we're already running on that. That was at least the thought there.
Good idea.
Agreed.
Get a little bit farther ahead.
This proposal from this consultant says they won't be done with the report until October 31st, so the retreat, if you will, would be sometime in November.
Yeah, that I need to clarify that. Yeah, the issue there, the optional tasks that are listed on the let's see, third page of the scope of work. That one I've talked with him about, and that's a TBD. We may not need that one. It depends on the initial scoping or the initial assessment. So if we aren't doing that, I think that can change that timeline and shorten that a bit. But I wanted to have the conversation here, but I'm going to check in with him, you know, this week and try and get this. Yeah, yeah.
We need that information.
Counselor Lehman, thoughts? Oh, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My initial thought would be if we could move up the issue of resolving the URA prior to going out for a local option levy would be preferable than to have it still on the table as a future item.
Okay, it sounds like we're all in agreement that
Great.
there's no point in trying to plan when we don't know what the scenario will be.
Great. Well,
And I
him.
like the idea of the build out coming back just
Okay.
as a work session.
I'll just put that in the look ahead then. We'll just plan for that on one of our regular meetings, probably the September work session.
Sounds good.
Great.
You get all the information you need?
Yes,
Give
thank you.
clear direction?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Anything else in the administration report that anyone wants to discuss in further detail or, oh, yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan.
I was hiding that back there.
Oh, I
There you go.
forgot. Totally.
Yeah, this is, I think we've talked about this before and I think we brought it to Park and Tree. I don't know if we brought it to council.
Nice.
That is,
Beautiful.
the Grange, I helped procure and the Grange funded, this project. There you go. Yeah.
You can't see it.
Mayor, and
Nice.
no, and then turn around. Like, let's order you around.
Okay.
So there are,
On 1 foot.
there are 5, there are 1 for each branch, and they'll go, the way the rose garden is built, there are kind of 5 pies, so it goes in the front, so the names, the IDs with the names, are currently there. I don't think there's room for both, so those are gonna go to the outer perimeter. So people walking on the outer perimeter can see what the names of the roses are, and then these will be on the inner perimeter. You know, and then the flag, and then other stuff's there, so yeah. The pedestals were fabbed by the same people that did the other signs. They donated that. This round was donated. They did a really quick turnaround for us. So Brian and team are going to get those installed here in the not too distant future, and we'll have them in
As soon as he has full staff, right?
well before that. Yeah.
Well, I guess thanks to the Grange then.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe really led that. It was great. I just helped on the procurement of this, and the committee decided kind of out of the options, which medallion types from a vandalism and a safety, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it was really good dialogue at the Park and Tree, and the Grange provided the final funding.
There is a lot of work that comes out of the Park and Tree Committee and a lot of collaboration within the community that I'm not sure we always recognize.
On that note, kudos to Tom Beatty as well, because he was the one that researched and ordered all the roses and decided on
Yep.
placement, and the
Yep.
names are based on branches. So this-
Yep. Yep, it all fits together. Yeah.
It's been, but it's looking really, really good. And those roses are spectacular. I can take lessons. I'm sure he would.
So for anybody that's,
Okay, anything else in the administration report before we move on to finances? Pretty good. Lots of activity happening. In a little city, we do a lot of work. Thank you, Brian. Safe trip.
He was trying to sneak.
He can't. He's in my viewfinder. Okay, finances, we ready to move to that?
Yeah, I gave you a little spoiler alert on these last meeting. I gave you the citywide portion, the cash fund balance in the citywide statement. So pages 1 and 2, 106 and 107, we kind of went over last meeting, but this is the full financials for May. So this is 11/12 of the year. We are currently in the process of doing reconciliation of June and then also closing the year. So we will have preliminary final for the fiscal year. What did I say? We will have that by Monday. So in the next council meeting, you'll for sure have the final for FY26. I can, the highlights really are always, how I scan them is, looking at fund balances and then figuring out, is that good, bad, or is it tracking, trending? But if there's, I think probably the key piece as we continue to focus on the general fund is to look at the general fund. Streets, water and sewer are all working really as intended. Fund balances are right in line with what we've targeted. Streets, just as a reminder, we had planned to be kind of burning down fund balance because we had received the entire Collector Street funding in advance, which was kind of a rarity. So we've been having an artificially high fund balance because the Collector Street project was advance funded. So we've been spending that down as we've done the Collector Street project, which just completed. So we have final invoices in June for some of that work. Likewise, in water, we have a pretty healthy invoicing still for the well house project. So we just approved the transmission line. The well house won't be done until October either. So those are going to kind of finish at the same time. So there's still invoicing and expenses in the capital part of water that some of that will show up in FY26. But the general fund, really focusing on that. The fund balance you see there, 517, that's getting us to what we talked about as our desired minimum fund balance target. So, my guess is, it'll be slightly below that, because we've received on the revenue side, we've received the vast majority of our property tax revenue that comes in earlier, and we still have 1 full month of expenses of payroll and other expenses. We have a couple of quarterly contract invoices that come in June for a quarter, so you can't really just go 1/12 and add to that because some of them are 3 months worth. That's why I'm not a super fan of quarterly invoicing. I'd rather have things monthly invoiced. So we're working that way to have them more predictable and monthly. But we have 2 contracts in the general fund, dispatch and our Cottage Grove building. They're both quarterly, so they will hit in June. So we'll have some expenses there. So I anticipate the fund balance not being quite as rosy as that. But even with that, I think we're making really strong progress.
Good news. A lot of hard work.
I have one question on the budget page.
Yes, Counselor Lehman.
Page 108 for just a second. It's probably just a small thing, but it seems like in the facility management department, for the past 2 years, we kind of exceed the budget to actual. Maybe we need to increase the budget amount for that line item. Seems like in a couple other pages, that department is also kind of over on expenditures versus the budgeted item. So for example, on page 115, actual spent was 200,000, budget is 131, so 152%. So just maybe increase that budget item if it seems to be a pattern.
Yes, thank you. It does. And that's partly, part of that is the conversation from last meeting with, or not last, 2 meetings ago, I guess, with our budget transfers and our supplemental budget. Some of that was there. We're looking at either doing exactly what you say, Counselor Lehman, or our cost allocation plan that we'll be bringing to council in the fall after we run it through Finance Audit Committee. We'll be doing more direct allocation because a lot of those are expenses that are able to then be divvied out to multiple departments. So it's kind of a holding spot. And I think we're better off to use the a modification of our cost allocation plan to more heavier use of direct allocation than having them sit there and then do transfers between funds. Because I think that gets a little more budget predictability. To Councilor Lehman's point is it's harder to know what all is in there at any one point in time and then how those are divvied back out and transferred back out. It's just less clean. But you're right. It's been 2 years where those have been on the verge and over. And being a part of our annual transfers. So we are working on that one with the cost allocation plan. So we'll talk more about that in this fall when that document comes back to you.
Thank you.
We've just approved the budget for next fiscal year.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
Yep. And the June financials that you'll see will include another column because we have the adopted budget here that we're comparing against. There'll be an amended budget column because in June you did adopt budget transfers and an amended budget for the supplemental, that small, that grant in the general fund, which actually was part of facilities. That was our IT immutable backup grant that we received. So it will look a little bit different in June because of the decisions that were made on budget transfers. Yeah. But this is still May, so I wanted to put them in there and show it because it'll look better, but you can't put them in there until June. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always just that little bit behind.
Yeah.
Aren't we? Yeah. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the, well, let's just get to it, the August City Council recess. We do need a motion for that. Do you have a report on that, Mr. Hanks?
I think we have one that the city recorder put together there at the very last page, page 119. It lays out the reason it requires a motion from the charter.
Are there any questions from council?
Do extra staff?
Yes.
Quick question. Are we, let's see, so we would be saying we're proposing that we do not have the regular meeting in August, but also not the work session in August?
That's correct.
Yeah, the charter part talks about, because the charter says you meet at least once a month. So the charter requirement is to just that regular meeting, because we can cancel those work sessions more loosely. Yeah.
Any other questions? Staff? Any deliberation? Everybody still looking for an August recess? Now remember, we have an executive session, work session, the 28th of July. Yes, nothing in August is the proposal for council. That does not mean that staff is all taking vacation. It just gives them a bit of a breather of not making packets.
Operational catch up. Yeah.
Yes. Well, if there's no questions or deliberation, I will entertain a motion in a second.
I move to recess the regularly scheduled August meeting with the next regular meeting to be September 8th, 2026.
I have a second.
I'll second.
There is a motion by Counselor Engebretson and a second by Counselor Smith to recess the regularly scheduled August meeting of City Council with the next regular meeting to be September 8th of 2026. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you. Now, we also have an option for liaison committee reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? Their liaison assignment? No, we already talked about Parks and Tree, didn't we? Oh, okay. Well, if.
Sorry.
Counselor Engebretson,
I'll keep it
yes.
really brief, but I could mention that it wasn't the liaison, but we do have a new citizen, and I think it's like a citizen advisory committee. I don't know exactly what it is for land use planning. So I was, and I have participated in the first meeting of that. There's going to be another meeting a few months from now.
So
I
are you
don't
talking
know
about the
specifics.
housing capacity analysis? Yeah, the technical advisory committee for the housing capacity analysis project. Yeah.
That, we got the grant for that buildable land use.
Right, so the housing capacity analysis also has the buildable lands inventory in it, and that's LCOG and Megan are working. It's a 3-city thing, and yeah, that was great. We had a packed house for that.
Yeah, it was a great meeting, good, participation from our Coburg public that are participating on the committee. So I think that'll be a good effort, and I'm excited that we're moving forward with this housing analysis. It's been kind of delayed now for probably a while longer than maybe it would have been ideal. So it's good that we can take advantage of this grant, and wonderful that the grant was available for us to be able to use. So
Looks like it's gonna be available or done by our September council meeting, right? Read that right?
The full project won't, but the buildable lands inventory may be, that component of it may be, but the full project goes well into next year.
Anything else? Good of the order. Oh, I will adjourn us at 7:57. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Councilor Lyman.